Okay, we'll get started. We might as well get all this on record. It's some good stuff, so. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
All right, can you hear me? So as I was telling the board already while we were visiting, elections office had our annual conference last week. Mandatory to maintain certification in elections. It's a week-long annual event. And before I dive into some of the negatives that came out of that conference, I have to toot our own horn here first. I did submit a presentation, 3 slides. That's all I had time for. If we could get those up. So I'm going to deliver some good news and some bad news. So some very good news. Cowlitz County, go ahead and go to the next slide. Cowlitz County continues to excel in the elections area across the state. This is a new award presented by the Secretary of State's office for outstanding security. So this is the good news. This is the first of its kind. And honestly, I think the Secretary of State created it because Cowlitz County is piloting a program with the Secretary of State's office in preparation for 2024. We nicknamed it a Go Kit, but in the simplest terms, this is a disaster plan if we are taken by hackers, if we have any type of malicious event, cyber event with our IT department. This will allow us in elections to continue operations. We will be limping, but it will not stop us. So it's a complete and isolated system that is ready to go. We wouldn't have internet access at all, any access to email, anything like that. We would only have access to the state registration database. We would be able to issue ballots, record ballots that are coming in, and that's it. Minimum capabilities, it would be difficult, but it won't stop us in the water. So Cowlitz County is ready in 2024.
How would you have access only to that little piece of data out there?
We have blacklisted the specific laptops so that it has no internet access, period. It has no access to anything other than a DIMO label, simply to be able to print labels for issuing ballots, and to the state's database. We wouldn't have anything, a printer, anything. So, and that's the only way to protect ourselves is when you basically go offline, no internet connection. The minute you connect to
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but you're not offline. That's what I'm saying.
It is offline. I don't claim to be an IT guy, but the SOC team for the state came down and met with our IT staff, and we have a specific router. It's an isolated, sandboxed standalone system, only with direct access to VoteWa, and that's it.
Right.
Doesn't that model the way that you handle emailed ballots when people overseas want to vote? Because it's completely separated from the other system.
Yeah, good memory. We have an isolated laptop that is used because by law, elections has to receive email ballots, fax ballots from those that are overseas, and there's no way to identify a malicious attachment from a legitimate attachment. So you're right, we do have a standalone laptop that in case it's bad, it's not gonna infect anything else.
Great. So let me repeat. As long as you have a cable hookup to the outside world, you're not absolutely safe.
You know, I don't feel comfortable speaking. What I'm being told is that is not the case. But like I say, I am not an IT professional. I have IT professionals that are assisting us. That's what I'm being told. So I wouldn't be comfortable answering that, but would be happy to bring one of them here to speak about it.
I'm just recommending you don't use the word standalone because it's not standalone. It's isolated, but you do have a link going out. And if you want some real industrious hacker, NSA capable type hacker, I recently sent an article to IT about these the routers. They have a program in there. It had been hacked, and some 30,000 routers out there were shipped. I bought this new router, plugged it in, did everything right, and your data was going out that way.
Because it came with malicious.
Right, and I'm saying
Yeah,
you
and you
just
buy
don't know.
USBs that also can contain malicious programs on them as soon as you plug them in. But that's why elections takes the extra step. We
How do
don't
you
plug
know?
anything in that hasn't been gone through the cleaner.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree, but when you say things in absolute, when you know it can't be, I think is just something I'd be very cautious of. You cannot speak for what happens at the SOS office.
Yes. So if the state is hacked, you're right. We'll all suffer. So we're relying on the Secretary of State to be outstanding.
In any event, congratulations.
Thank you. So next slide, I specifically wanted to talk to the canvassing board. And like I say, if there are typos in this, I really apologize. I had just this morning to throw something together here. So we came back from conference and learned that Senate Bill 5890 kind of turned into something really robust and significant that I wasn't anticipating. It's surrounding signature verification in our vote by mail system. You know, we continue to have questions about the signature verification system, but it also has a direct effect on you. So one of the requirements, first, I'll just say that it adds requirements to the Secretary of State and counties, and I've just touched on a couple. So some of the requirements for the Secretary of State are that he's to adopt statewide standards for signature verification, develop a standard training and also training manual for signature verification, and design a standard signature challenge form. So we didn't have those in the past. Secretary of State would assist in coordinating Washington State Patrol to provide training to us on signature verification standards. But this now, the Secretary of State is required to produce a manual on what's legitimate, what isn't legitimate. And he's working on that, and also training, providing training.
So Carolyn, what was the problem that they were trying to address? Too many signatures not being accepted, or?
You know, it's a good question because you have both sides of the aisle. So I talked about this briefly in one of our trainings last week, that a lawsuit was filed in King County. We know how lawsuits are, how long they take. It was dropped, I want to say, at least a year ago, maybe a year and a half. It hasn't been updated yet. But it's challenging signature verification altogether. The nuts and bolts of it is that if there's no fraud occurring, why verify signatures altogether? So we have that piece going on. We know that people in general don't trust, some people in general don't trust the standard of signature verification. And the legislature assigned the state auditor's office to do a study. They studied the 5 counties with the most signature rejections and the 5 counties with the least signature rejections. Cowlitz County was one of those, and compared all of us to see, why are we challenging signatures? And, you know, after that study, they agreed that the signature challenges that occurred were legitimate. However, they also added this strange apples to oranges comparison because we all know that race is not identified in our voter registration system. So how could you say that those voters whose ballots were challenged are of one ethnicity or another? And they use this kind of broad sample of percentages, and well, statewide, we have X amount of Hispanics, et cetera. So they just produced a report that came across that if you're of Hispanic origin, you're more likely to have your signature challenged. And that must imply some sort of bias. Signature verifiers must have some sort of bias while they're verifying signatures, right? The reporting on that kind of, it went sideways, and it's created more rhetoric around the process. It's a difficult thing to say one way or another, because for me, myself, your verification of the signature is the only security that you have in preventing somebody from signing your ballot. The post office worker who mails it out and intercepts it first. And I shouldn't have said that, because I don't want to imply that they have any nefarious intent. I'm just saying that there's availability there. Somebody taking your ballot out of your mailbox and signing it for you. If there's no signature verification at all, you're going to go to vote and you're going to have a ballot already returned for you. And you're going to say, wait a minute, I didn't return that ballot. If we're in a vote by mail situation, and we currently are, and up until and if the law changes, we have to have security in place. And signature verification is that security in a vote by mail process.
Yeah, I think one thing that's overlooked is you take two signature experts to look at a signature, and they're likely to disagree.
So we just went through training last week on this, and I am going to put some more information together specifically for the parties, hoping that they will disseminate some information for me. It will be very difficult for my staff to challenge a signature. It's effective now for this primary, and it will be very difficult for us to challenge a signature in any
I
case.
think some of the evil here is it's hard. There's some obvious signatures and some non-obvious. That cannot be changed. People are going to use their judgment. But what can change is what you do with the bounced signature. And you do a tremendous effort to verify the signature. You contact the people and so forth. That's where the magic is. And that's why your numbers are so low here. But that step is really important. Is that acknowledged at all in this?
So interestingly enough, because you've seen our process in Cowlitz County, we did have one of the lowest rejection rates because we take the extra time. We make those contacts. Your party members, I've heard them say it at the meetings. If we see a signature that, okay, we're going to accept it, but boy, their signature's changed. We need an updated signature. We're going to mail you a form. People get upset about it. We take a lot of heat, but we want to keep updated signatures on file specifically for that process. And it's those contacts, and we do thousands of those every year, but it's that contact that keeps our rejection rates low. The state auditor's office, because we were one of the counties that were under this review, got a hold of that, and they made it a best practice. And now it's implemented into this Senate bill. Let me tell you how happy King County and some of those other counties are, because it's an astronomical amount of work.
Yeah.
This is an additional full-time position during elections, every election, because this isn't just us doing that regular maintenance work. We're going to have one person calling every single day during the election to make contact with any voter that has a challenge signature, calling, emailing, and texting if they've provided the information.
So I think it's one of the interesting trends that I've noticed, and I've only canvassed a couple of times, but it appears to me that we have an increasing number of young voters who don't do cursive.
They really haven't
They're
developed a
printing,
signature.
and they scribble or something, and It's really strange, and they probably don't really realize without a signature, it's hard to verify.
You're absolutely right. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. I wasn't really going to focus on all the challenges, the additional work that's coming to counties because there is a direct effect on the canvassing board members. So this bill requires that everybody serving on canvassing board attend signature verification training from the Secretary of State. And we also publish your name and those training dates on our website in this bill. So moving forward, I know, Rick, as chair of the board, you are officially serving, but you've designated to Dennis this year. So I guess you guys can, amongst yourself, decide who wants to attend training, and I will make sure to get some dates to you. But in their infinite wisdom, and they did not consult us on the wording of this bill, one of the new requirements is that we have to develop this community outreach plan on signature verification. The best part is it must be in English and Spanish, because we all know how wording is everything, just the way they worded the bill. Even though we're a county that isn't required to produce materials in alternative languages, when it comes to signature verification, we now have to hire a translator and translate all of our materials in Spanish as well as English, effective the primary.
So I know it makes it sound like you have to start from scratch, but we've got two institutions that are already used to utilizing translators. One, of course, is district court for sure.
Oh,
Because they're constantly, and if you talk to Molly, she'll tell you that whenever we have a fishing season for smelt, for some reason there are minority groups that just fled to the lake, the riversides. And if they get tickets by collecting too many, catching too many, they goes to district court. So they're very used to translations.
good to know.
But we also have an organization called the Ethnic Support Council that, I mean, that's their whole focus, is helping people who speak English as a second language to better integrate into the community. So reach out to both of those for who they rely on for translations. And it's probably already, you have a network there, I think.
We appreciate that. We were first going to rely on some of our larger counties like King County that are currently translating. We don't want to have the robust plan that King County probably has, so it won't be exact, but we would have a starting point at least.
But community outreach is based on the community. So I mean, it's
Exactly.
helpful to have somebody already in place in the community who knows how they've already been doing the job.
I'll
So-
tell you, it's a little bit of a scary endeavor. I've heard horror stories when you don't speak the language and you're trusting an outsider to interpret and translate your materials. And if they get their different interpretations of word meanings, and I've heard that they've gone horribly wrong in the past, not gonna lie, it's causing me a little bit of heartburn. Might rely on some of my Spanish speaking friends to review it and see if I've got anything.
So I'm sure that the state is making resources available for the counties to hire the staff to do this.
This is a billable charge. Unfortunately, this is how it works. It just rolls downhill. So everything required in here now becomes an elections charge, and every jurisdiction participating in the election just, pays a price.
You'll hire who you need to hire to get the job.
Yep. Just an additional cost with everything else. So it's a lot. Signature
You
verification.
know, Carolyn, retired speakers of Spanish probably be right in there, be glad to help you out starting January.
I think one of them might be on a boat somewhere, I've heard, for months and months. We'll be unable to track them down.
I was wondering
Mr.
where we
River.
were gonna go there.
So like I say, I just had a couple of things this morning that the new signature verification requirements on how we verify the signature itself, I want to get, because it's really robust when it didn't used to be in the past. I want to get that training out to the parties soon. This is just a highlight of some of the additional requirements on Secretary of State and the counties as a result of this. Any other questions for me? I'll update you. Our military ballots went out last week. We're in it. Primary has started, so ballots, official ballots, I think, go out July 19th. I don't have a calendar off the top of my head, but and again, I would
Yeah.
like to remind everybody, the local voters pamphlet will not include state candidates. So state candidates can be found on our website, Secretary of State's website. We will not print them in the printed local voters pamphlet. That was a very difficult decision for us.
Well, when you have as many people filing for office, how many filed for governor? I mean, just it's
There were
enormous, isn't it?
30, 2 withdrew. So in one race, we have 28 candidates,
Yeah.
which you can only get 2 candidates to a page. And in 2022, Cowlitz County attempted to print state candidates, and it ended up being over 70 pages. We'd be looking at least 90 pages in this pamphlet. And we had 2 days in 2022 to put it together. It's impossible for a county our size with our resources. And we
Talking just the primary.
just the primary. Yeah. General election, you will have, we are
It's
just,
pared
yeah, we
down,
are
yeah.
winnowing the candidates down in the primary. So general election, we print jointly. People think that that's produced by our office alone, and it's not. We combine with the state prints their candidates, we print our candidates, and we combine the 2 pamphlets into one mailing. So
Yeah.
there's the difference. The state does not print their own pamphlet in the primary.
Makes sense.
Wish that was included in this bill.
Just a comment that we can't do anything about, but when I was at the beginning of the computer age, if you will, and when programs are developed, there are always documentation standards. You put in your code, I'm doing this or this. And some people objected to the standards because you want to be stylistic and individual yourself on that. And the problem with that is kind of obvious. Your program, if it's any good, will survive you and go on to somebody else. And even now, when we look at a Microsoft program, there's an item in the upper left always called file, right? Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't make sense, but nevertheless, the standardization prevails. So here we are, when we know that we are largely an English-speaking nation, and if you do not speak English, how can you keep track of almost everything that happens along? And then if you put something in Spanish, let's say, why not put it in Ruski and Italian and Hmong? And you're just opening up a can of worms. Divisiveness is not a good thing. And having to translate items, I mean, the purpose of a language is to communicate. And the world, for one reason or another, has adopted English. I've been in places where the only communication between the Japanese and the Italian has been in the most god-awful English, but at least communication occurred. Anyhow, that's my spiel.
Bring up a really good point that I think this is only a matter of time before this bill is challenged. You can't single out English and Spanish. You are so right. Those other languages will say, well, what about us?
Yeah.
If we're not following the national rules, for language, then I don't know how we can discriminate by saying, oh, we're just going to print English and Spanish.
And particularly if I can help the translation a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That's what I fear.
I can't wait till you have to translate out for the southern drawl.
Well, those signature challenge forms, if you've ever had your signature challenged on your ballot, those forms are going to come now in English and Spanish. So, and I just know they already make people angry. So now when it comes in multiple languages and is difficult to read because of all the required verbiage that we need to put in there, it's going to make them angrier.
Just in case people misunderstood, that other people listening misunderstood what I say, I have absolutely zero objection to going to a restaurant that speaks only Spanish or speaks only Chinese. I'll point to the pictures. Doesn't bother me in the least bit, but an official legal document, it's just a burden we should never take on.
Because where does it end?
It never does, yeah.
You guys have any other questions for me?
No,
All right.
thanks for the update. I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
one
You're
last
very
comment
welcome.
on that. We apparently have English speakers have a hard time understanding phrases like shall not be impaired. Can you imagine translating those phrases into a foreign language and all the nuance? Well, it depends who translated it, right?
Yeah. You've heard stories of car manufacturers have a name for a car and it doesn't translate well into another
Like
country.
Nova.
Yeah. So when
You heard
you're
that,
right,
right?
when you translate stuff, you could have unintended things happen.
There have
Yeah.
been events across the state
Yeah.
with those counties that do have to translate. So the fear is legitimate.
I like the Nova example. No va, it does not go, does
Yeah.
not run.
Oh, that's great.
I have a Chevy, does not run.
Why is this not selling down there?
That's great.
Okay, I see the coroner's office.
In how many languages do you have to do a certificate?
So, good morning.
Morning.
So we just kind of have a basic update on just some numbers for you today.
You have to speak into the microphone.
Sorry. We just kind of have some numbers for you guys today, just to show you kind of where we're at. And then we had our annual conference in May. So we discussed some things that we've taken to legislation and stuff. And so we thought we would just share with you on that. Our pathology study that we've been doing is still on its way, and hopefully that will get some pathologists and stuff into Washington State. They're still working on that.
Can
and
you
they're-
explain that? That was a search for pathologist or?
Yeah, so they have a pathology study going, which is a group of some of the pathologists within Washington State that is kind of taken over that study and trying to put together some thoughts of how to bring more pathologists into Washington State.
Okay, it's not studying pathology, it's
No,
studying
no, no.
pathologists.
It's kind of trying to brainstorm
Yeah.
on how to bring pathologists into Washington State so that we can overcome the shortage of pathologists. So they're still working on that. And that will go to legislation to trying to help beat that shortage. So they're still working on that. But they have some pretty good ideas and stuff. So the indigent bill, so
Can you name a thing that they might be thinking about doing for the pathologists?
so they have some, I can't remember all of them. One is some schools putting together some options for different schools, like bringing them into the University of Washington, a couple of the different bigger universities and stuff, giving them different options and maybe like
It has to do with some incentives with the tuition for
Yeah.
studying for pathologists.
yeah, some of those things. I can't remember what all of them were, but, and then housing and then some options on payback and stuff like that, I guess. So, and then one of the other ones that was in legislation was the indigent bill. So currently, we have to hold indigents for 90 days before we can do anything with them. And that went, we opted from 90 days to 30 days. Excuse me. And so that went into legislation and they went from 90 days and they met us in the middle, kind of in the middle for 45 days. So we don't have to hold indigents. Now an indigent is, a true indigent is one that does not have any family, not an unclaimed that is abandoned by family, but a true indigent is one that does not have family. So from 90 days to 45 days. So we technically only have to hold them 45 days before we can take care of them and take care of disposition for them. So we don't have to hold them in our office for 90 days before we can take care of them. So
You
that was
translate
very
that
nice.
to how it impacts your office?
In the morgue. So if we bring somebody in that does not have any family,
No, I think I understand that. I'm
Okay.
saying, so the law changes. We used to hold them for 90 days.
for 90 days.
90 days isn't free, but on the other hand, you've got a lot of space. So whether it's 90 or 45 days, my guess is doesn't mean a whole bunch to you in terms of the budget or the staff you need. And that's the kind of question I'm asking.
Well, it does for the person.
No, I'm
So,
talking about from our operations. I know those days, I mean, I cannot speak for the public, but
yeah. So it's not just for us, but for general. So when, it doesn't matter if it's somebody that's staffed with a lot of people or a very big county building or a medical examiner office that has a lot of room. You have offices that are very small. So those offices still have to do it, right? So they're required to hold them for 90 days also. So
right, I think I understand that.
Yeah.
We should not expect from you to come to us and say, we can cut our budget or we need to increase our budget based on this change.
no, but for everybody across the board, it's nice that we don't have to hold an indigent for 90 days. We
Yeah.
can take care of them within 45
Understood, yeah.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
There's
for,
some offices that don't have
yeah.
the
they-
space and the luxury
exactly,
we have. that-
Exactly. And
yeah.
then also for a person in general, it's nice to be able to take care of them sooner than later because the longer somebody sits there, the more deteriorating they get. So it's,
So a question that I have is, how long do you have to, how long does it take for you to determine that you truly do have an indigent as you've
it
described it?
does not take us very long. I mean, as soon as we get back to the office, we're working on that. So really probably within a couple of days, we're going to know whether or not we're going to be able to find family.
And how long is, what's the typical length of time for taking care of a deceased? Once they cross your threshold
For a non-indigent.
for for non-indigent.
Oh, so as soon as we locate family, then we give them, we just tell them as soon as they find a funeral home, then they're ready to be released as soon as we find family. So within a few days, typically, hopefully the family has a funeral home and then we can get them on their way of where they need to go.
So typically not much, it rarely extends beyond what, 15 days?
Yeah.
Assuming that family comes in and
Yeah.
takes care of business.
Yeah, but with our databases and stuff, we usually know if we're going to be able to find family within a couple of days. So if we haven't found them within a couple of days, we're not going to find them unless they're not in the system and they haven't had anything to do with them for years and there's no way to connect them. They're not in the system anywhere and they come out of the woodwork, way down the road. So, yeah. So it's nice for everybody, including the decedent, to be able to be taken care of in a timely manner instead of, being in the cooler and,
It sounds like 45 days is still a little bit long then.
yes,
But
it
that's
is,
the-
but
that's a
it's
compromise.
it's a lot nicer for us to not have to keep them the 90. So we're happy with that. We would have rather done the 30. That's what we asked for, but it was a compromise and it's still less than 90. So we were happy that we at least got that one. So, yeah. So that was nice. And then the pathologist study is on its way. So hopefully we can get something going with that one. And then, what was the other one? There was another one, but it's, I forgot what that one was. But then we pulled stats early this morning, so I'm sorry about that. But currently it looks like our overdoses that have been determined are at 25 with 10 pending, which most likely those ones will be overdoses. And then we have a couple undetermineds, which were most likely overdoses also. So that would put us at about 37 currently. And we still stand with the majority of those fentanyl. I didn't have time to break all of those down, but next time we come in, I'll have a better
Could you
breakdown
send
of all
us
those.
that in an email?
Yeah, I could do that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Christy sent a text to Grace to see what we were at this time last year. We were at, and I'll confirm when we get back to the office because I didn't think about that when we got over here, but it looked like we were about 18 at this time last year.
Wow.
But I'll confirm when we get back.
So
And about 41 all year last year.
possibly doubled.
Yeah. Yeah. This week's been pretty crazy. I can't say, I mean, it's been pretty crazy lately. And then seems like we've been getting, well, we had three deaths yesterday. I can't say that all of those were overdoses or anything, but we've been getting more and more on a daily basis. And I'm not saying they were all overdoses or anything, but
Yeah.
it's been picking up. So
So we had a workshop, a report from our epidemiologist at the last Board of Health meeting. And her estimate at looking at the numbers of overdose deaths indicated that the most vulnerable section of the community are white males between 24 and 44. Does that kind of fit the profile of the cases that you're seeing?
I haven't broken it down that way.
Okay.
But what we had seen was probably not that low. It's probably up a little bit higher, it seemed like, of what, but probably
older-
what, yeah,
the older
a little
segment,
bit older. But what we're seeing is of course, just the deaths. What they're seeing is overall everything. So we don't see the ones that, of course, go into the hospital with overdoses or the EMS, that come out of it and all of that stuff. We're just seeing the ones that don't come out of it, of course. So there's all kinds of different stats, and our stats are just coming off the deaths that,
Yeah.
that come through our office. And a lot of ours are probably the middle age on up. And then, a few months ago, we got a trend of 4 deaths within like 2 days of, what was it, 25 to 33.
Yeah.
It was kind of a weird streak of fentanyl overdoses of just those ages of 4 in just like 2 days. So,
Obviously a dosage that went wrong, I guess, if there's a right dosage,
yeah,
uh,
I don't know. It's the potency, I, I don't know. I don't know how you say it. I mean, no drug is a good drug. So if you call it a good batch, a bad batch, none of them are good. So more pure,
Yeah.
I don't know. So,
I think at the first of the year, or right before the first year, we did some personnel changes over there,
mhm.
right? I think we added, so we have somebody in the office all the time.
Yes.
Am I remembering right? And then weren't we looking for a pathologist because we're having to pull, we were wanting to make sure people could get with families instead of pull them, or I thought we added something else too. Or just office help?
No, it was just office help.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Maybe
a
that was the
receptionist.
thought, if we had people in the office, somebody all the time in the office, and
Yeah.
then others could get out and meet with. the
Yeah,
families. Maybe
so
that's what it was.
we added Grace over there as a receptionist so that everybody else, because of the phone calls that come in, so we had somebody basically designated to the phones so that the deputies could do their casework and meet with families and all of that stuff, and not be on the phone
Not be
constantly.
interrupted.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And that's working how you.
Yes,
thought it
it's
was.
been wonderful. So, yeah. The other thing is that we got here is vehicle accidents are up. We've had 10 so far this year, which is quite a bit. We've had 3 drownings so far and 13 suicides. So I didn't put how many suicides from last year currently, or anything like that, but I do know that the vehicle accidents are, that's quite a bit from where we usually are. So,
Our numbers when because we've had a couple, at least 2 or 3 were trying to elude officers and into an accident. Are those? into
and those
stats
were
too, or
like back to back too.
Those end up in those stats, or they're,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we've had quite a few of those that were back to back, and then we also had within those 2, we also had another freeway accident that they were all like clumped together. So yeah, we were pretty busy. So
I went down to Battleground to my daughters yesterday in that Woodland. I'm surprised they don't have more there, because you're going along and then all of a sudden you start seeing taillights and, and yeah.
any
Yeah.
other questions or anything that
Oh,
you would like
I'd,
us to look at and bring back for you, or?
disheartening to see the what looks like continued growth in drug deaths and stuff.
Yeah.
Are you still getting out in schools? You trying to a little bit?
Trying to, we haven't recently, we did early on. We did
We had a booth at the Children's
Did you
Museum.
do that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
we did the
And,
Children's Museum, and then we also did the Kelso.
Gifted children, so it was
Mhm.
elementary, middle school, and wonderful, wonderful, smart kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they still have the every 15 minutes program in the high schools?
I was at the WACME conference, they had someone talking about it. I don't know if they still do that in our area.
Yeah.
But they were explaining that, and we had a few people talk about what an impact that made on them as high schoolers and the choices that they made afterwards. And so
I know
So
they
it's
used,
based on the idea that a teenager dies from a car accident every 15 minutes.
Yep.
And so they go through a high school and they pre-select kids, and then on the day, they dress differently, usually in
Oh,
choir gowns or, some kind of a gown. And,
absolutely
and,
silent.
and,
Yeah.
and then they disappear and they go away the rest of the day. And the survivors are very much aware that all of a sudden numbers are down, and it's kind of, I thought it was pretty impactful.
I know they used to do it. I haven't heard about it for a while, but I'd like to check into that and
I-
see, so.
I thought it was a collaborative effort between the sheriff's, law enforcement, and the coroner.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that they did a while back, but I haven't heard about it for a while. So,
if you know, and I don't know that you would have this stuff, but if you know in talking to other counties, are they seeing this same type of trend? I'm going back to the drug overdoses
of the drugs,
again.
yes.
So it's not, we're not singling out Cowlitz County.
No.
It's looking abnormal from
Nope.
anybody else. It's more of a sad state all across our state. And
is.
you think Oregon too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have too much interaction with Oregon. But I do know in talking with everybody else within Washington, it is a trend with everybody. It's just, we kind of know in the bigger cities, you're gonna see more. It just seems to hit home more when it's in the smaller ones, and it seems to be more impactful when it's in the smaller ones.
In the big, huge counties, people
Yeah.
tend to get lost and
Yes.
not so much paid attention
Yeah,
to.
which,
but-
which is, which is really sad, but when it hits the smaller communities and stuff, it's like people start to actually wake up and see that, hey, it's really here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
As you continue to work on those statistical numbers, I'm wondering if it would be possible for you to perhaps forward a quarterly update on your comparisons and your statistics for the Board of Health.
Mhm.
Because, we've had that report on the overdoses, and I think that would be just helpful information
Yeah.
to just be aware how the trends are going.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Perfect. Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Couple miscellaneous, I saw a note from Commissioner Mortensen today on the chaplaincy. I can give you a little bit of background on that because I talked to Mike Moss and Savannah, and they were gonna communicate it to us, but somebody's reached out. You remember they looked at that place and they said they had some issues with it and they would want it to be inspected and not have, didn't think it was, would not pay what they were asking for with the issues they saw. They did another tour, they took, and I don't know who from the chaplaincy they took over, but showed them the issues that they were seeing that were kind of underneath you get past the cosmetic improvements, you could see where that was, and they had sheriff over there to look at the storage. And both of those entities thought there was more than they wanted to deal with there. So, and I think Mike and Savannah may talk about this at some point in time. At one point, I think you all approved a storage facility for the sheriff, and they still have those funds, so we may look at, of course, with our approval, if a storage facility with maybe a living quarters in there for the chaplaincy. So I think that's the route you're gonna kind of hear from them.
Redesigning it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other thing I had on my list is we need to assign new Board of Health people. I've only seen 3 applicants to fill the positions. And I think that has to be done because we have a Board of Health meeting tomorrow and those people are all be gone, so,
This is their last one.
yeah. So I basically, I don't know. I'm assuming you guys have seen the 3. I turned them in, I said, this is the 3 we got, so.
Well, of course, they have to fit certain categories, so I don't know if
And-
that's not on the form, but are you keeping track of?
Kelly kind of broke that down for us so you could see where they would fit, so, just so you're aware.
So would these, the Board of Health meeting is tomorrow?
Is tomorrow.
That would be with the new people or?
No, I think that'd be the last meeting with
Right.
the
okay.
existing, but we might, if you're good with those,
I'm good with those.
who's
yeah.
applied, then I think in that meeting, we should announce that the new city members will be A, B, and C.
Okay,
Well, next Tuesday, not tomorrow?
yeah, that's
Okay.
that's more like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been having a lot of trouble.
I made
lately.
a lot of people nervous. Okay,
And I have a miscellaneous.
go ahead.
It's basically for you. The Veterans Advisory Board meets. And that's this Thursday, I believe. And I'm being a little,
They told me tomorrow,
oh, is it tomorrow?
but we have 1:30 and 2:30.
It is tomorrow, yeah. Yeah, their meeting starts at 3:00. I figured we might be done by then, but I want to go to this renewable hydrogen program. And it's just that anyhow, and I generally sit into the Veterans Advisory Board, but I think there are issues there that you might be interested in just seeing.
And if the time works out tomorrow, I'll sit in on,
Okay,
on that
and the
list.
advisory, and it meets at HHS in
yeah.
that conference room.
okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, when Carolyn I think my idea is both of us should probably take the training because Dennis is kind of watching over that this year, but he'll be gone next year. And so,
I will get the dates to Kelly to help. It's a good, probably hour and a half. of
okay.
time. So we'll get the dates to Kelly. and
So-
see what works for
Oh,
everybody.
an hour and a half. Okay, that's not that.
Yeah. I want to make sure we're not a bad cog in the wheel to you getting that done. So,
I thought you were talking about extensive, like multi-day. Okay.
It's just a lot of details.
Okay.
So an hour and a half of that level of detail.
Okay, great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we got about 5 minutes. Why don't we take a short recess and then we'll fire up here in about 5 minutes. Okay, back from recess, head into agenda item review. First one I see is Event Center. Kim?
Good morning, Commissioners. Kim Boca with the Cowlitz County Event Center. I've got 3 things on the consent agenda for tomorrow. And I don't know which order they're in, but I'll just start with my tourism grant to the city of Castle Rock. It's in the amount of $30,000. This is, again, to remind you, the LTAC board voted to give each of the cities $30,000. And so this is one of those grants to them.
Is this an annual grant or is it a one-time only for just this year?
This is a one-time only for this year.
Because we do the visitor center, that's a different allocation.
Correct. So just to refresh a little bit, because I don't believe, Commissioner Weber, that you were at the meeting when we talked about this, there was some excess funds. And so the LTAC decided that rather than having those funds just sit in our account, that they would divide 150,000 between the 5 cities in the county so that they could then expend these monies for their own tourism use. So they will get this funding, and then at the end of the year, they'll have to report back to us how this money was spent.
Yes, Mr. Vorse will be back next year asking for it, continuing the program. Although I think he's retiring.
I think he'll be retired.
Any questions on that before I move to my event center items?
The other cities will come along later.
Yes, we've already processed Kalama, and I believe I sent a contract to Woodland, but I'm not positive that that's come back, so more to come. Castle Rock was the most excited to get this. They have the least amount of lodging tax coming into their community, so this really does mean a lot to them. So they were the first to get their contract back. My next 2 items are grants. We received 2 grants from Washington Department of Agriculture. These are health and safety grants for fairs. It's part of the fair funding. The first one is agreement number K5046. This one is items that we need to purchase for our fair. We're looking at some new bleachers, some new picnic tables that are ADA accessible, a plotter printer to print our own signs to have better signage on our grounds. This grant's in the amount of $58,666.49, and it is a reimbursable grant, so we must expend the funds and submit for reimbursement. We have until May 31st of 2025 to expend the funds for this one. Is there any questions on that? And just a side note, we applied for 2 grants this year. Because of the master plan that was happening at the event center, we didn't want to apply for anything that would impact structures. So we tried to apply for funds for things that if buildings were torn down, relocated, that we would still be able to use these items. So the second grant is to replace pig pens that are dilapidated. A lot of the, I had mentioned this before, some of the items that we're tearing out can actually be used in our sheep barn. So we're going to reuse what we can, but we will be purchasing new pig pens with the second grant. And the second grant is in the amount of $47,290.50. Any questions on those? Okay.
Glad to see the work done for the pigs.
Try to keep those pigs corralled.
My-
Thank you.
My neighbor, I live on Crooked Creek Road, and he's at Crooked Creek Swines.
The Williamsons.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Glenn and Leslie, my neighbor, so I'm used to seeing their.
They need to work on their trailer. They made
Yeah,
the-
because one little one got out and they've been,
On I-5.
Nursing.
Yeah.
there was one on my driveway one day and it just come up and butted my Jeep, and I told Glenn, I said, that was almost pork.
We've raised pigs, and when you're working with 300 pounds of solid muscle,
I
they're,
know it,
and they have their own mind, so
yeah.
it's a challenge. Thank you.
Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Moss, Public Services Director. The one item we have on the agenda tomorrow is an interlocal agreement with the Port of Longview. It's an update to their current agreement. We have agreements with the other ports and the cities to do work between the cities and the county and the ports in the county. Our old contract with the Port of Longview is only for $3,000, which doesn't get a lot of work done. So we're updating it to $30,000, which is still quite low. Most of our agreements with the cities are in the $100,000 to $200,000 range. The main reason this was brought up because the Port of Longview is looking to have this chip seal one of their roads this summer, and it was past the $3,000 mark, but below the $30,000. So we're just updating it to $30,000 at this point. There's no ending dates to these contracts, so it may be good for $30,000 for the next 5 years, but I would guess down the road, if there's a major project between us and the port, either way, that will have to come back for a bigger update or another update.
So the railroad tracks by Tenant Way is not part of this deal at all,
Not at all, no.
and that's still on track, as we would say.
Yes, an update there. We've been visiting with the port about Tenant Way. Sounds like they still are doing some work behind the scenes on some of their reporting back to the federal government, and they're a few months behind on that of getting the projects, what they need, some programs in place for their federal dollars. So it looks like it may be fourth quarter of this year. Still working forward to an agreement with them that we bring to you guys, and probably in the next, I'm hoping in the next month or so. That's it.
I know it's not part of the agenda tomorrow, but you may have gotten some emails from us on the chaplaincy building.
Would you guys only want an update now, or you want to do it after HHS? That's up to you.
I think you can do it pretty quick.
Okay, I can.
Yeah.
Actually, I brought a picture tablet or folder for each of you. I did not, sorry. I can forward these pictures over to you, Kelly. Thank you. So we had a chance to visit the property there on 7th Avenue a second time with two members of the chaplaincy board and also the sheriff's office to look at that location, since it was questioned on the use of the outdoor storage area for the sheriff's office. Unfortunately, when we visited with all three members, all three decided it was probably not the best location for them. It was going to be really tough for getting secure storage for the sheriff's office, and pretty much tearing a building down and starting over. And if we're going to do that, we might as well go to another building somewhere else. And the two board members from the chaplaincy, it was the first time walking through that building. So when they walked through it, they decided, hey, we probably it might be a better location than this. So after that meeting that day, the two members of the chaplaincy said they were going to report back. So I apologize, you guys got those emails. Apparently they did not report back. And so we could have the county's real estate agent contact the owners of that property directly today to make sure they're aware that we're not interested in the property unless you guys see reasons otherwise. So this is a few pictures of some of the buildings, some of the interior stuff. And the interior stuff we could easily fix, but it was mainly the outside that was looking for the sheriff's office that was deemed, not useful.
Mhm.
That building is the larger building, needs a new roof, doors, siding, all the wiring has been pulled out. And it's just really challenging. I think the sheriff's office wants to be able to put their boats there, and there's really not good pull-through access. Backing off of 7th Avenue is just challenging. So for us as an option was not to say no, but to come back with different plans. And that is, I think Commissioner Dahl brought this up earlier. A few years back, we had some money earmarked for a storage building for the sheriff's office, but it kind of fell to the side. I think when they started having some permitting issues of stormwater, where it was supposed to be located at. I'd like to find another site for that and come back to you guys with some numbers to build I think they're looking at like a 40 by 100 so many bay shop metal building secured and maybe box in one of those bays for to be able to lease out or rent out possibly to the chaplaincy. That's pretty much an open space that has a kitchenette and a meeting space and maybe a bedroom and a bathroom in the back. Because it sounds like that's the need if they have an out-of-town chaplain and they may need to stay 1 or 2 nights in the local area. So, I mean, that might be a better option than the property. It is a better option than going across the street on 7th Avenue. So if you guys are okay with that, I'd love to bring you guys back some numbers and we can look at budget time in the fall here and see if it works into either the maintenance budget, general fund, CIP. We'll see exactly where this falls at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are these of the facility on 7th?
Yes, it
that
is.
you think
Yes, they
about?
are.
Wow.
Worse than we thought, huh?
It's quite challenging. If you buy it for X number of dollars, you're gonna have to spend another X number of dollars on it.
Correct. Yeah, we figure we'd be at least $1 million into this property. And even then it'd be a challenging time, like I said, to get, it's really a pie-shaped piece of property, a wedge,
Oh, got it.
and with a driveway in the middle of it. So for us to be able to get access for boats and stuff in there is going to be really hard.
And an elevation issue too. With
Yes,
the
correct. Yeah, exactly
elevation,
right.
yeah.
Exactly right. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
We're glad
So-
you guys took a deeper look at it.
well, I appreciate that. Yes, like I said, since we're not informed, it sounds like we'll make sure our real estate agent reaches out to the owners of that property today and inform them that we're not interested.
But I think sounds like we're all kind of in agreement. If we can make that storage unit and have a availability to lease to the chaplaincy, I think that'd be a good alternative.
Yeah. Yeah, and it might be I would guess for a lot less, now quite hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe less than what we'd be spending across the street. Or I say across the street because I'm so used to being at the fairgrounds, sorry, Kim, on the 7th Avenue property.
Agreed.
Thank you.
So, you probably talked about it. I was just leafing through that and the location of a potential new facility.
Initially, we were looking at, of course, behind the Public Works facility. I think we talked about that a fefew years back in a back parking lot at Public Works. It just didn't
Yeah,
work
that-
out that location. But I think the new spots we're looking at, they'd like to be closer to the jail and juvie on that, the road between jail, juvie and the event center. Talk to Kim, maybe there's a corner there we could use across from the morgue or maybe a piece between jail and juvie to put the shop up. They'd like to be close to their home base.
So you've got options.
We do have options, yeah, for sure. We talked about
It's
Riverside
new-
also.
New construction though,
Yes, it
totally
would
new
be, yeah,
building,
yeah.
where the trees are all cut down.
That would
couple
be,
years
that's the
ago.
first corner that we'd like to look at. So exactly spot, yeah. Easy access out and get right back on the freeway. They want to be somewhere in the middle of the county, of course, because of their boats to be able to get to South County, the lakes, the rivers. So,
You're looking at least $500,000.
yeah, that's the number we're looking at. Yeah. And we thought we may be about $1 million by the time we're done at this property there.
Yeah.
So,
Makes
but we have a
sense.
brand new facility and secure for half the price. So,
Yeah.
okay,
All
well,
right.
we'll get you some numbers for the budget time.
Okay,
Thank you.
Tomorrow afternoon, I think we talked a little bit. I was going to ask Mike to talk a little bit about OPD. We might be doing in executive session. Are
Yes,
you
I
good
have
with
that on
You
for the
have it on there?
1:30. Yeah, I'm gonna work with Kelly and get that on the calendar for you. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And Kelly, do we have a executive session today scheduled at 11? Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. HHS.
HHF stands for Heavenly Haven.
Huh?
Sure. Good morning, Gina James, Health and Human Services. We have 3 items on the agenda for tomorrow. The first item is a contract amendment with LifeWorks. This is in relation to our developmental disabilities contract for employment and day services. If you recall, there's was a change in legislation recently that allowed individuals to be in both employment and the day service simultaneously. Historically, individuals would choose one or the other. And so we have seen an increase in clients choosing to be in both services and selecting LifeWorks as their provider. So we are allocating some additional funds just to finish out the current fiscal year of services due to that increase in clients being served. And then we anticipate a new state contract coming, so we'll have that coming to the board in the next month or 2 as well. But this is just to finish out. We had funds that, we don't allocate 100% of the contract out when we get the state contract. So we had some additional funds that we can utilize for these circumstances. So this is just to finish out this fiscal year, and then we'll be coming back with next year's allocations as well.
So the state kind of opened up the program a little bit.
They
Is that what
did.
I'm hearing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Any questions on that one? The next 2 items on the agenda are related. So we have an amendment with the State Department of Commerce Community Development Block Grant. This is for the pass-through with CAP for Meals on Wheels. So the first item on the agenda is the state amendment. And then the second item is the pass-through with CAP. So the funding for next fiscal year is what's being added to this amendment. The funding for next fiscal year is 66,000. And then we're passing down 62,500 to CAP. There's 3,500 that we're allowed to keep for our administrative costs for the grant. So this is just next year's fiscal year allocation for that particular program. And I will have Tammy from CAP, who manages the program, will be here tomorrow if there's specific questions that come up tomorrow. Okay, that's all I have.
Sounds good.
Okay. I see on here, this resolution, so I was just seeing if you guys have any concerns with it. When we changed the hours here, we did it for a year and to take a look at it again. And that's what this is. If we've been happy with the way it's worked over the year, the resolution is for permanent till we change it, so it's not a trial period anymore.
How do we evaluate that?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, Arn. I just trying to hear if I've noticed any complaints or anything from the public, and I have, and I don't want to pick on HHS. The only thing I've heard is from a couple comments from the funeral directors trying to schedule Friday things. And I know you were trying to maybe work out some details so they could handle that, but to be honest with you, that's really the only comments I've heard.
And we did work on addressing that Friday issue, so we do have a staff member that is checking for records on Fridays to be able to approve them through the system.
So they'd be able to,
Okay.
Yeah, so there's been 1 or 2 every Friday, but we've made sure that they're approved.
they're taken care of.
Mhm.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
So if that's the only thing I've heard, unless you guys have heard other issues, I haven't
I've
heard.
gotten 0 emails to that. I was
Yeah.
talking to some constituent and I think they were inclined to complain about anything, so I wasn't sure what to make out of that.
There, I think I've had maybe 2 complaints about being closed on Friday from people, do-it-yourselfer folks who wanted to come down and get a permit on Friday, and but we've not been having that for years, and it's,
Yeah.
you know, other than that, no other complaints, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, so unless we hear something strange from the public, I think.
Especially when we have the kind of flexibility where, where there is kind of a little bit of a glitch, and you're able to work it out. I appreciate that.
Okay. I think that takes care of the agenda from what I see. I know Doug wants to have an executive session and he says he's available early. We don't have to wait till 11 if everybody. Can we do just, yeah, okay. I just assumed you were part of the.
Nope. Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I just had one request this morning from Health and Human Services. They're requesting to fill their local emergency response coordinator. The employee resigned, and I believe she's no longer here at this point in time.
Now, that's something that's funded through emergency management, but it works in the health department, right? Is that? Oh, consolidated contract, okay.
When was the last time we had this local emergency? Just the COVID? It, I don't understand enough of the position because we put a lot of effort into emergency preparedness, but you don't coordinate things until you actually, I mean, you got your plan, but then the emergency happens and you think your plan is applicable. Sometimes it is. And so I'm just wondering, does this person have other duties or how do you use them?
Yes, there it is. I mean, it is a lot of planning similar to Department of Emergency Management. The local emergency response coordinator, this position has a public health focus in that emergency management planning. So the person in the position has always worked really closely with the Department of Emergency Management and participating in state and region planning, emergency planning committees. There's different regional groups and efforts around planning for those. COVID, yes, was the most recent emergency that this person really was able to pick up and implement some of those planning activities with the Department of Emergency Management and the IMT and that sort of thing.
Have we seen this person who's leaving in action?
Have we seen them in action?
Yeah.
Like I said, COVID was the most recent event where we were able to practice some of those
Who
activities.
was that?
Her name was Catherine Rosthorn.
Kind of following on the same lines. This is a full-time employee, part-time employee?
It's a full-time.
Full-time?
Mhm.
She's working with Larry full-time or does she do extra work at the department or additional work at the department?
She was really stationed in our office, but
Okay.
she probably worked a good quarter to sometimes even half of her time with DEM. They've done a lot of work in the last year, especially working with a lot of our skilled nursing facilities, working with the hospital, those types of things, making sure everyone's plans are updated. This position also participates in all the local emergency response drills. So when they had some rail drills recently, I think they had another one over actually in Oregon that she participated in. And she works really, really closely with Scott and Larry. I almost said Ernie, Scott. and Larry.
Yeah, Scott.
And the trainings, they've done a lot of trainings too, and she's
Yeah.
helped facilitate some of those trainings.
Yeah, and she's also, generally whoever's in this position also becomes a part of the county's type 3 incident management team. So they actually, and lots of them come in with those certifications, but they usually work well with the local IMT as well.
So could you tell me again how she gets paid or how this spot gets paid?
The funding for the position comes from the consolidated contract, the CONCON,
Yeah.
from the Department of Health.
And if it goes away, then the job goes away. If the contract, I mean, how much latitude do you have in this thing? Because I'll be frank, I'm having a hard time figuring out it's a full-time job. But I know this is not an area I feel very comfortable in. And it's always difficult to argue against motherhood and apple pie. You know, you got to be prepared, but I don't see how this would play into it. So I'm just trying to find out, is this is grant funding
Mhm.
that comes in. And within the consolidated grant, how much latitude do you have in there? So there's a pile of money that if you don't use in this, you can use elsewhere?
This is really specific funding in the consolidated contract only for this position. So this one is kind of set within that contract. This is actually federal funding that comes from the federal level. It started after 9/11 and is included in the consolidated contract, really specific to this work.
So the position is vacant.
Mhm.
How long has it been vacant?
Little less than a month.
Okay.
And who's doing the work? Which is what it is.
So you're attending all the conferences?
A lot of them have been virtual meetings at this point, which has been great.
You're getting very comfortable down in the basement over at DOJ, or at Hall of Justice. Is that something that can continue? I mean, you're able to do all your other jobs as well as this? 'Cause
Interesting question.
The
Right.
reason I ask that is because it doesn't make sense if you're able to handle it. We don't
Probably
need another full-time
not.
position. So
Yeah, I wouldn't be available in the same capacity for DEM, and I know that that position's always been, we have an agreement with DEM that they can call that, whoever's in that role 24/7 to activate them if there's flood or whatever happens, which is, I don't have that type of skill set, so.
And when she's not activated or when they're not activated, what do they do?
A lot of plan review. She also has been helping DEM put on a lot of their classes that they've been doing. I know they've stepped up doing a lot more classes. Same with the region, working with the regional public health folks to do the same.
So I'm wondering, can we postpone a decision?
That's obvious. That's up to the board.
We postpone it, are we looking for,
If,
or you just
I'm not, yeah. ask
just
the
trying to
question,
think
I'm
about it
sorry.
more, it's just not set?
Right, not say
Yeah.
no, but think about it more, and the more time goes by, the more you'll be able to say, well, actually, we could get by with halftime or something like that, or I'm not even sure that's a possibility, but I'm so, I was on the LEPC for a bit in the past, and it never felt, look, we've got DEM, we've got Fire District 2, we got 1,000 people that are doing this emergency preparedness, and I'm thinking what exactly does HHS have to do with that wasn't already incorporated by the paramedics out of Fire District 2 and all of that. So I'm just saying, I don't see it. And rather than say, no, I'm saying maybe if we come back to us, you can help me see it.
You think would it be appropriate to maybe ask Larry what he loses if we don't have this person?
Exactly what I have in mind, yeah.
Would that be all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Anything else, Jessica? I didn't mean to shortchange you there to begin with. Okay, I think if Doug's ready, he has a executive session on litigation. And I don't know what he's saying for time. Mike, what do you think? 10 minutes? Okay. So we can adjourn and take care of that.
Okay.
Okay, back from executive session on litigation, no decisions were made. We are going to adjourn to another executive session on contract negotiations. I'm 15 minutes. Okay. Okay, we're out of executive session. No decisions were made. We're down to any final miscellaneous issues. I think we've probably covered them all. Okay. We will adjourn.